Totality. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or do you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, "May I have your attention, please," do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Monday to you. Today is Monday, September 26, 2016. This is episode number 11 of Pause, Think, Consider. Hope everyone had a great weekend and want to thank everybody for taking the time today to listen in. For those of you that have subscribed, you probably subscribed to us utilizing iTunes. If you haven't, please go on, subscribe, and then give us a rating and leave some comments so we have some feedback. It enables other people to find what you've been able to enjoy over the past couple of weeks. Today's topic is the idea of the seasonality of moods. For all information on this topic, you can go to pausethinkconsider.com/seasonal mood, all one word. So the idea of the seasonality of moods. As you've noticed, the seasons are changing. We're starting to come into fall, heading into shortly winter, the weather ultimately changing. In the Pacific Northwest here, specifically in Portland, Oregon, we've had an incredible run of just beautiful weather, and hot too. We had 90 degrees the past couple of weeks. Incredible. But the shift has started. Rain, as is inevitable in this part of the country, starting to occur more frequently, more rapidly. And with that comes not only with the changing of the seasons, I always seem to relate the changing of the seasons to motivation and momentum. I know in the world of business, things are broken down by quarters and then by year, fiscal years ultimately. For the retail world, that's a little bit different than the rest of the world, in that a fiscal month is going to be a total month, so it wouldn't necessarily be all of January. It could pick up parts of February, maybe parts of December. But with each month, with each quarter, with each season, it brings on a different mood. It brings on a different sense and spirit to it. And what's interesting is in talking with people throughout my circle and just being observant and open and listening to other individuals and how their mindset changes throughout the year. And while I think it's beneficial to have ebbs and flows and to be adaptive and to be able to transition and change and go with the flow, I'm also a big believer in creating consistency, in creating habits, in creating momentum. And momentum seems to snowball with the changing of these seasons, if you let it. if you let it. It can ultimately have an impact on your mood and your ability to complete and get things done. I'll give you an example. We'll go through each individual season. This is looking at spring, summer, fall, and winter. And examples within each how individuals, companies, businesses can find ways to leverage it for momentum or leverage it and find ways or perhaps excuses to not forge forward, to not complete tasks at hand, to find ways to cast things aside. I think you can get into with momentum, it can often snowball. It can snowball in your favor or it could snowball out of favor. And it's one of those things that if you're in a rut, you have to figuratively draw a line in the sand and choose to step out. Just as if you have such momentum to the point that it feels as if the train is going off the tracks, you can figuratively hold on and just ride it out, or you can hit the brakes and step off and take some time off. And all of those figurative ways of looking at momentum are valid. They're all valid. A saying I like to use is DOTS. DOTS, dots. Depends on the situation. Depends on the situation. So, to get into the seasonality of moods, let's look at we are getting ready to head into fall. Summer is over. The weather becomes crisp. You have the fall colors. Ultimately, this is back to school time. Generally, some people go back to school August, so it's technically speaking still in summer. But for the most part, as fall approaches, that is back to school. That is football, as I know for it being the most popular sport in the U.S., not globally, but in the U.S., the NFL, most popular, goes hand in hand with college football. Lots of people in my circle this is their favorite time of year because they love football. And ultimately, if we're planning and in the long term, you're preparing and starting to think about the holidays. You're starting to make potentially travel plans if you haven't already. And with fall, because you're moving away from and fall, depending on what part of the country you're in, it could be the nicest time of the year. For summer, for some people, it's too hot, it's overbearing, and so fall is that nice balance. It hasn't quite started raining as much as maybe it does during winter or as it does during the spring. And so for some people, fall is their favorite time of year. But with that, it's also heading into one of the toughest times of year, winter. And so fall can oftentimes feel like trying to, if we're going to make the analogy like you're a bear, you are preparing for hibernation. You are trying to wrap up and get things done prior to the march into the end of the year. Because once you get to winter, everything becomes much more chaotic as it gets even closer. So it's still long term when you're in the fall. It still feels like you have some distance between you and the end of the year before things happen. And so this can potentially, for people, be a great time to start a new endeavor, a great time to start something new. Or, on the other hand, it could be a very poor time, because once you get into winter with families and holidays, and it just potentially is easier to just start at the beginning of the year. Just easier. A lot of people, they like having that definite start date. I'm going to start January 1. The fitness industry, nutrition industry, they capitalize on this. Capitalize on it. So fall is, if we're looking at in comparison to the other 4 seasons, which we'll get into each one of those coming up, it's one of the top seasons, in my personal opinion, for starting something. Not the top, and I will share with what I think is the top season to ultimately start something. I think you'll be a little surprised by the answer. But so that's fall. So we'll move into the next winter. Winter is, if we're going to use the bear analogy, it's you are now going into hibernation. For depending upon what part of the country you're in, this can be the harshest time of year. Between the weather and the cold and snow and rain, and oftentimes morale being tough. The days are often shorter. You have less daylight. And so, statistically speaking, I'll link to an article. Statistically speaking, especially this is very common in Alaska, that individuals can potentially go through more depression as a result of not having that daylight, that time. It's not the same as summer, when we have the longest days of the year. And what I've noticed is winter, if we're going to rank 1 through 4, winter tends to be last in terms of moods and motivation out of the 4 seasons. There's very much a feeling of, well, I've got Christmas, and I've got Hanukkah, and I've got Thanksgiving, and I've got all these things coming up, and at that point, because of how busy we are, and especially in the retail world, having worked in the retail world, it is, you are preparing for Thanksgiving, and once that hits, it is insane until Christmas is over. And then it goes completely dark because everybody has just worked their ass off. You know, my aunt, the restaurant business, this is corporate party time. This is money time. If you're a caterer, if you're a restaurant, lots of businesses, this is make or break time. This is because the end of the fiscal year is December 31st. So starting anything new, net new, very challenging. Very, very challenging. And so oftentimes you wait until the start of the year. Perfect example, working out. We justify in our minds, well, I'll just start January 1st. I'm going to get through the holidays, because I've got Thanksgiving. And then I had Halloween. Then I had Thanksgiving. Now I've got all my company corporate parties. Now I've got my holiday parties. Now I've got New Year's. And then I'm going to start clean. So you basically have 3 months of binging on whatever the hell crap that you want to. And you need that definite let me start. That's certainly one way that you could do it. But the second way that you could do it is to take a look from the perspective of just starting and getting going in the midst of whatever weather you're going on, because you're hunkered down as it is. You are and have been hibernating. You know everybody else. So that would be the flip side of it. So let's move out of winter. We've established winter is not the best time for people to start something new. Not the best time in terms of moods or momentum. So now we get to spring. And this is, if we look at nature, this is when things start to grow. We have had an onslaught of weather, snow, rain, and now temperatures start to rise. Temperatures are increasing. And with that comes growth. The trees, the flowers, crops, everything starts growing. And that's the same could be said for businesses. This is you've gotten through your busiest time of the year potentially. So it depends on the industry. Maybe it takes more time. And so this is a great time. If you're not going to use January 1, great time. So it'd actually be the number one time, in my opinion, for starting something new. It just feels fresh. If we're going to isolate a specific season, springtime is a great time to start new things. You're generally, in terms of business months, very early on. People have they're either very fresh with their budget, just figuring out their budget for the year, and so you have the most amount of resources possible. Versus winter, you're coming towards the tail end. And so lots of growth opportunity. Springtime is also preparing for summertime, which is potentially the most active time of year. Or it could be inactive. Not as inactive as winter. That's the slowdown. But I'll get into why it's potentially the most inactive. But spring is planting those seeds and growing them, and it's really a season of hope. You're coming out of the dead of winter. There's a little bit more sunshine. The flowers are coming in. There's always spring break as far as schooling goes. Sure, you had winter break, and that's much longer. But again, you've got so many things going on that time. Spring break is just refresh, regroup. So that's springtime. And we got summer. And summer's a tweener month. It can either be great, it's either the number 2 or number 3. It's kind of a swinger. Fall and summer play off of each other. They're in the middle. And that's because it could be either the most active or inactive. I say most active because with sunshine, and it's been proven, sunshine helps increase people's moods, heat, sun, all positive things. That can create activity, not only from a physical standpoint, but from a business standpoint, from a social standpoint, or it could actually create inactivity because of the exact same reasons. So because of the ability to be active, because of the weather, because of the sun, you are actually inactive with some of the things that you should be because you are leveraging and enjoying all of those same positive traits for family vacations. Or potentially you're working on outside, working on your garden. And other things maybe taking some neglect to them. So it all really depends on how you leverage your summer. For a lot of people, this is when they're extremely active. extremely active because of all of those positive, the positive weather, the trying to gain momentum before heading into fall and winter. This is, you've gone through Q1, you're in quarter 2, and this is trying to ensure that the back half of your year is successful. So if you've had a poor Q1, this is a building momentum and righting the ship and having a great rest of the year. But it also can be challenging because for some people, they take advantage in their personal life, leveraging summer, and so they're not as active. So that's the seasonality of moods. So when we look at the seasons, when we look at how they collaborate, and when ultimately is the best time to start something or the best time to work on something, it's very cliche. But really, it doesn't matter what season it is. It doesn't matter what time of the year. Really, those are all excuses. These are all excuses that we make. And in breaking down each season, those are really justifications for why we do something. It's a facade as to why we don't do something. Oh, it's winter. I'll just get to that January 1. Oh, it's the fall. Kids just started school. The holidays are coming up. Oh, it's the summer. Family vacation. I'll get to it when I get back. Oh, it's the spring. It's not quite warm enough yet. Got allergies. And that's snowballs. And suddenly, what was supposed to be a season, what was supposed to be a quarter, has become a year. Or in some cases, years. Multiple years. And breaking out of that snowball of momentum. So I gave the analogy of hitting the brake and jumping off the train. The more momentum you have going in that year after year direction of not making that positive change, the more abrupt and more jarring it's going to be to jump off. But as I said, the best time to start something is now. And I've had conversations with people, and I have it all the time with people in my circle about different passions they have, different things they want to try, different things they want to do. And there's always a justification for why not to do it. Always a justification. The insecurities that we feel from it. That fear of failure, that fear of judgment as to why we don't. And we hide behind the seasons. We hide behind them all the time. And so, if we're going to be real with ourselves, if we're going to have some truth serum, what can we do to break the cycle? How can we put our feet down? Can we have the courage to pull the brake and jump off the train? This isn't a matter of quitting. We talked about quitting last week. It's not even a matter of sense of necessarily changing direction. It could be. It could be changing direction. I guess in the sense of I'm going to stop eating like crap That's probably quitting. It's probably as close as you're going to get, but that argument would be that it's changing direction. I'm changing the direction of my overall health and well-being. So what can we do to ensure we stay motivated? What can we do to ensure that momentum is on our right side? And if we don't have that momentum, what can we do to get it? There's a couple of outside examples, and I'll link to this on the website. 3 articles and 1 book that I wanted to share. So the first article is, what did discipline say to motivation? I'm going to eat your lunch. Really entertaining piece by Nathan White. Highly recommend reading it. I enjoyed it. Another entertaining piece by Adam Thompson Harper titled, Your Motivation to Start a Company in Silicon Valley Sucks. I love words and verbiage and that sort of sentiment, that truth serum coming right at you between the eyes. And that's what Adam Thompson Harper does. And then another, they're all kind of around the same feel. Because with motivation, it's supposed to be inspiring. It's supposed to stop you, get you to change that direction. So this last one is the lies our mind tells us to prevent life changes. And finally, as I mentioned, a book. For those that are looking for another source in terms of how to gain that motivation, what we need in order to do it, regardless of what season it is, Daniel H. Pink wrote a book titled Drive. And I will post, he's got a great video that he uploaded to Vimeo. I will link to that on the website. And I highly recommend, if you don't read the articles, if there's one thing that you do from this episode, I would go watch that video that Daniel H. Pink put together about the book Drive. Great. So here's my personal 3-step process, if you will, on how to stay motivated, not put in the excuses of the seasons, and not let quarters, seasons, months, years pass by. I alluded to it earlier, but the first thing is to just start. Just start. Personal example I can give you is in regards to this podcast. And originally, when I kicked around the idea of maybe I should do this, I suck at blogging, but I need to be creative. Jeannie's got this blog. She's very successful at it. She's successful in the sense that she's consistent. She's committed to it. My buddy Chip, he does a vlog every day, and I need that thing that I can do every single day, day in, day out. And I don't have it. Gosh. And I read articles and watched videos and read articles and watched videos. And I started to write something in Google Docs. Here's kind of an idea I might do. And Jeannie came home and said, oh, what do you write? No, not for you to see. And that was the last time that I really did. And I kind of was like, gosh, I was reading all this stuff about this podcast, but I don't know. I tried this blog thing. I didn't do it. It didn't work out. It wasn't right for me. Got other people in my family thinking I'm a quitter. If I'm going to do it, I want to commit. I want to go all the way. And that was back in That was back in April. 5 months later, finally. And you know what ultimately did it? What ultimately did it was, well, in watching several Gary V motivational videos, which were great, but that line in the statistic that 90% of people say they're going to do something and then they just don't follow through. Most people don't follow through. And in taking some time to have some self-awareness and reflection, I looked at myself and said, all I've done is given excuses why I can't do this versus just doing it. It's not going to be perfect, but that doesn't matter. What's perfect is the sense of actually doing it, of being able to say, I did this. And so from 5 months of trying to hold myself back to ultimately a 5-day span of saying, I'm going to do this, to the creation of the website, to the creation of all the other channels that we have, Facebook, LinkedIn, Medium, YouTube, Instagram, creating all the collateral that came with it. Not necessarily even knowing how to leverage it. So having to research, how should this be done? How can this be hosted? How can it be distributed? What's going to be the most effective way? It was an absolute blur, that 5-day period. But you know what? It got done and it got out. And with that comes number 2. The second step to staying motivated and eliminating the seasonality of what my mood is. Because if you look at it, with being let go from a second company within the span of 2 months, my mood should be December, dead of winter. I'm going to bundle myself up in a cabin and lock myself away for the rest of the year. It should be the ultimate depression. And yet the exact opposite has happened. The exact opposite. Because I made a personal choice to start something. And now with that momentum, I'm just riding it out. I'm just riding it. I'm gently, my father loves horse racing. And so to use a horse racing analogy, I just barely have my hands on the reins. I'm just making sure that, it might hit the wall, it might hit the railing, I might bump into somebody else next to me, but I'm just going to make sure that I can navigate it off as smooth as possibly can. And if something's hot, it's hot. It's getting almost to baseball playoff time. And with that, you talk about riding the hot hand, whether it's the pitcher or the players. And you played 162 games, and yet it can come down to one game. And it's such a superstitious sport in which being able to leverage that momentum can make or break a season, sometimes even a career. And so if you've got that momentum, go with it. Go with it. See where it takes you. The first key is to just start. Once you've started, you've got that momentum. Don't suffocate it like a fire. Keep it going. And then with that, make sure that you're continually exploring. Because in order to be innovative, in order to be progressive, to ensure that you are not going to get stagnant, because eventually, if you were to swing a pendulum eventually the momentum would decrease. Eventually, it would come to a stop if you didn't give it any more juice, if you didn't put any more coal into the fire. And so you have to continually explore. To use the analogy of a kid on a swing, if you don't pump your legs, you're not going to go any higher, or at least sustain where you're at. So you've got to pump your legs. You have to continually explore, continually challenge yourself. And if you do that, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Yeah, spring might be because of the growth and the flowers and the trees and the birds and the bees. It might be a great time to start. January 1 might be a great time to start. Or you know what? Monday, September 26, 2016 might be a great time to start. It might be a great time to start that project you've always wanted. To do that recipe you've wanted to go and try. To go to that restaurant with your significant other you've been saying that you've wanted to do all these years. Take that trip. Today might be that time to do it. So in recap, we talked about that momentum seems to snowball, and that the changing of the seasons, if you let it, can have an impact on your mood and the ability to get things done. Fall, which we're currently in, being crisp, first a real change of the seasons from going from hot to cold. We're preparing for the holidays in time. It's potentially the second or third best time to start something. But it can also get in the way because, well, it might just be easier to start something at the start of the new year. Then we head into winter. The worst time to really start something new, if we're examining just the seasons. We go into a bear-like hibernation. Most often people just wait for the start of the new year or spring. It can be great, if possible, to start something, but you're going to run into all sorts of naysayers. It's the busiest time in retail, holidays, family time. People just eating and drinking out of their minds because they can, because that's what socially we do. So then you get to spring, the start of growth. Plants, birds, bees, everything. That's the most opportunistic time to start. And then summer, it's the swing time. Could be most active. Weather's great. People are motivated, trying to either capitalize on a great Q1 or right the ship from a less than satisfactory first part of the year. But it could also be inactive depending on how you leverage it. Maybe family vacations. Great time to travel. And so it can be inactive. And with that, our motivation and how it doesn't really matter what time of year it is. That in order to really show that progress, we just need to start. There is no best time of the year. Spring might be, summer might be, fall, winter might all be the best time. But once you start, ride that wave of momentum. If it's hot, it's hot. Go with the hot hand. But ensure, because momentum eventually decreases. It eventually slows down. You've got to continually explore. You've got to continually feed. So at least you can sustain the current momentum, if not, continue to go higher. I want to thank you all for listening in today. Please check out the website, pausethinkconsider.com/seasonalmood, all one word. And then please go on to iTunes. If you haven't already subscribed, go on there, subscribe. Give us a rating, comment, let us know what you think, and I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow on Pause, think, consider.